Coming up on today's episode, Tesla unveils reverse summon, Osiris-REx is about to kiss an asteroid, and there's some new ideas for dealing with space debris. Let's get ludicrous. Hey there, and welcome to Our Ludicrous Future. This is the podcast where we talk about all the cool future stuff that's happening today that's going to make tomorrow hopefully be there. I'm Joe Scott with the Answers with Joe YouTube channel. With me is Tim Dodd.
Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut from the Intronet. And also we have Benjamin Solons.
Intronet. What's up, guys? It's Ben Solons from the YouTubes and the interwebs, as not the intronet. Do you know what
intronet is? Just where you
is?
see the beginning of things and nothing else.
This is like quiz time for Tim. Do you know what an intranet is?
Yeah, I do. But you should make sure that you tell everyone.
All of us office geeks know. It's an internet for just your office. That's private.
Oh, just like a local network.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Anybody here old enough
do
to remember LAN parties?
Yeah. And you have to carry your PC there, like the PC you made.
With a big CRT monitor.
Yeah. This is like every nerd had a van.
The original Xbox, our friends would get together and play Halo 1, and someone had to bring over their Xbox, and you could have 4 people playing versus 4 people playing on Halo 1, on 2. Oh, that was unbelievable.
The opposite of
some
social
World
distancing.
of Warcraft happening when I was in college.
I was into StarCraft. Yeah.
Leroy Jenkins. All right.
Speaking
how's everybody doing with the sheltering and the...
Well, speaking of real quick
of
of local networks, hi Discord, how are you guys? Thanks for being our local network.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, guys, yet again live. If you're interested and you're listening not live, you can do so by checking out Patreon, signing up, support the show, and you get to join us. Hear the 50 minutes of setup time that it takes prior to actually hitting record. It's just lovely.
Minutes.
You know?
Yeah. It's almost like a whole other show.
Yeah. Well, it's mostly us staring at our monitors, banging our heads at why our equipment isn't working every week. Well, mostly Ben.
Wait.
There's a lot more cursing.
Oh, my God. Yes, there is.
And Ben, you set up a brand new button this week, I think.
What are you talking about, Tim? I don't know at all. So this is going to be a PG show from here on out.
Why?
What were we before?
We were R.
NC-17?
We were an R-rated. Because
we were
if
the
you
basic instinct.
twice on the show, then you're R-rated, right? Get shorty.
Gotcha. Anyway, I think, Joe, you were about to ask us how we're surviving the apocalypse.
Yeah, I thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah. I'm still fine, honestly. I don't know. I have these days of man... I really, 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 really just want this to be over. There's so many things I want to do that I just can't, that a lot of people can't do until this thing's over, you know? So, a lot of that. What about you guys?
Joe?
I mean, I went to, there's restaurants that are still doing takeout and whatnot, and I'm trying to support them as much as possible. So, it's like I go to this dumpling place down the street, and they just kind of have a little desk out front where you can pay for everything. You don't even go into the restaurant, which is kind of handy and whatnot. But it's just there was this whole discussion around, oh man, I should have brought a pen so that I could sign for this without having to touch that. Because they had a clean pens thing and a bin and a dirty pens bin. So it was after you sign, they would put the pen in the dirty pens bin and then they would wipe it down with a thing. And I was like,
this is where
someday this is going to end. This is just so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's bizarre.
I think this is where you're seeing restaurants and stuff like that have embraced newer technology, like tap to pay with Apple Pay or those kind of things. It's it's still a tremendous loss in terms of their revenue, but the function of it is quite easy compared to people that didn't have online ordering or anything like that prior to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll springboard people a little bit forward,
But I think there's a lot of that happening in every sector right now. People are just figuring out, ways to work from distance and whatnot. And I really am, I think about this a lot, is how much of this is going to stick after it's over. How much of this are people going to be this is actually more efficient, or this is going to save us money if we continue doing it this way.
I mean, I've always wondered, like, think about how big offices are, and especially like say Silicon Valley, where there's some of the most expensive real estate in the entire world, having mega giant offices. I know, Benny, you've talked about your time at Facebook quite a bit. Always, it's like, I don't understand how that could be. Yes, you might have higher productivity. You might have people willing to work more than 40 hours a week in the office, but like, people are just sitting on a computer on the internet. Like, why are they making them all come into this place? It's super expensive. Or why doesn't it like every other day you come in? Like, so you can have half the size of a building. Stuff like that. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I think there's arguments all around. When I was at Facebook, the big thing was that you were more productive there, and something to think about too is. At a lot of these companies, Facebook's hiring practices, they adopted kind of Google's model where it was more kind of like how the military works. Like, you would just get hired to Facebook. You would have 6 different interviews, and you're going for, let's say, an iOS developer or something. And the people you interview with are not the people you're going to actually work for or with. They're just people that are donating their time to perform interviews. Then you get hired, and you go on this like 3-month boot camp of like learning how to do whatever. And everybody, like, I loved how there was, I think it was like a 2-week data camp where you just learn how to use all the data tools that Facebook has, for example. And in the end of it, you come out of it, and like, as you're coming towards the end, teams that need developers for whatever thing they're doing will come and kind of pitch what their team does. And then you would list like your top 5 things you want to go do. Like, oh, that team's working on this feature. I want to go work on that. That sounds awesome. And then it's just exactly how the military works. It's called a billet in the military, or in the Navy anyways. And yeah, you shuffle people around. You try to get people as much as so in the end, like, what you have are literally thousands of kids coming to work at a place that don't know how to be an adult, that don't know how to survive on their own. So they have really good brain juice, and you want to suck all that brain juice out and turn it into money. And so in order to do that, you need to like coddle them in every other way possible. Right? Like, literally on-site dry cleaning and laundry service, and on-site haircuts, and on-site dentists, and every possible thing you could just live there. And I know that for interns specifically, they would rent out entire apartment complexes, and people would just, it would just be free rent. So I think a lot of it is maybe just that demographic as well. Whereas if you go to Netflix, it is the exact opposite. It's like a boring, it's kind of stuffy, like business space. And the reason is like, look, we're going to pay you 20% more than Facebook is, but we expect you to be an adult. We're not going to be setting up all these things for you. We expect you to figure that out, and we'll give you money for those things because those are, benefits. But yeah, I think like it is interesting. There's arguments on every side of whether or not working from home makes sense or being in the office makes sense. The funniest outcome I see is all the talk show hosts trying to do what we've been doing for years, and they're so bad at it. It is terrible. I can't watch it. It's so bad. And maybe I'm biased here, but it's just kind of funny,
They're like, "Where's my audience cheering when I say things?"
Yeah,
I saw John Maher do that.
Yeah. I'm trying to imagine Facebook boot camp is like somebody messes up a code, and then everybody like stuffs some soap in a sock and frags them in the middle of the night for messing it all up.
This is my keyboard. It is only my keyboard, or whatever.
There are many others like it, but this one is
this
mine.
One is mine. Yes.
Yeah. No, it's a wild place, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if we ever get the time there. I'll take you guys on campus. It was actually designed to be like Disneyland. So if you guys like Disneyland, it's literally is Disneyland for nerds. The main street in Facebook's main campus. When I was there, that was the only one. It's designed to be exactly like Main Street in Disneyland.
Did I ever tell you when I got to go to Skywalker Ranch?
What was that?
Like the Lucasfilm headquarters?
No, I've never been there.
Yeah. I'll spare the entire story, but it was at a film festival, and I kind of wound up bumping into a guy who had worked on episode 1 and was able to get me in there. Happened to be my 30th birthday, so I got to go to Lucasfilm on my birthday. But anyway, it was sort of the same situation where it was like, it was out in the middle of nowhere. It was gorgeous fields as far as the eye could see. They had like 5 or 6 buildings, but they were all set up so that you couldn't see the other buildings. So if you like walked outside of it, it's like you were in the middle of this like idyllic pasture kind of thing. But they had their own garden there. They grew their own food, and it was basically kind of like what you were saying. They didn't really pay a lot. Like you weren't going to get rich working for Lucasfilm, but you were going to be given every tool you could possibly imagine. They were going to make like the best workplace environment in the world to be creative and do cool stuff. Anyway, it made me think of that. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
should we talk about some news this week?
Didn't hear you. What'd you say?
Should we talk about some news this week?
Do we have to?
What do we got?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, there wasn't a lot of stuff on my end, at least. You guys want me to?
I've got something to start here with. Might be fine.
Go for it.
So we're talking a lot about what we're currently doing, social distancing and all that. But, China is a bit in the future here, as they have been for a long time. But they've kind of, turned the corner on this. And so they're seeing, or Tesla in China is seeing a 450% jump in demand for the Model 3 as their economy is coming back. And so this is encouraging because I think a big question is what's going to happen to the EV market and all that here in the US. And if China's any indicator, it looks like things are coming back. And this is really cool because they're also bringing back a long-range rear-wheel drive. And I think they're also bringing back, or not bringing back, but they're adding Model 3 performance to the China factory, which I don't think was there before. And we're also seeing other footage now. I don't have it up, but footage of the Model Y facility assembly plant at the same Gigafactory in China as well. So, China is what, 3 months ahead of the U.S., I would say, in this whole pandemic thing. Maybe less. I don't know. But it seems like they're rebounding really, really strongly. And so if that's any sign of hope for us here, there it is. Maybe that'll give you guys something nice to think about.
Well, anecdotally, I've seen some things saying that like EVs are, for some reason, being looked at more right now during the quarantine, or like people are, I don't know what it is. I don't know what mechanism it is that's making people consider EVs right now, but maybe it's the clean air. Maybe it's the fact that, maybe I won't need to drive as much, or they realize their driving habits and they start thinking about certain things more. And I don't know. I saw like 2 or 3 articles, but maybe it's just like my own bubble of people being like, maybe EVs will be great. I don't know.
No, I was curious about that because, oil is so cheap right now. Like gas, I haven't seen it this cheap in 20 years maybe.
Wow.
So I actually thought, I was expecting it to go the other way, that people would be like, oh, gas is cheap, I don't need no EV.
Right.
But
when the EPA changed their laws on, basically the restrictions got removed, and now car companies, is it only like 33.5 mile per gallon fleet average, as opposed to they were trying to push for 38 next year, I think.
I don't know what the details of it are. Yeah, I did see that those got removed. In other markets too, like China specifically, there are regulatory things happening that are going to force, let's say, I'll just say EV adoption, but they mean kind of zero emission cars. Same with Europe. So it's kind of unless they were to go back and change all that regulation, which I can't see China changing their mind on something like that. Europe, probably not either. So the U.S. is the wild card, where we're kind of a little schizophrenic on our policy lately. So it's a weird thing. Yeah, it is interesting. I think the cost too of like not having to go get gas and then just long-term cost savings. Yeah, like I kind of want to do that. I'm really interested in buying like a used $10,000 EV and just driving it for a couple months and doing a review on it just for the hell of it, just to see. But now that I moved my office back home, like where do I'm going to go. The gym is like 3 miles away. All the places I want to go eat to pick up lunch are within 5 miles. Like I could just, if it wasn't so hilly here, I would just ride a bike,
Yeah. Well, maybe there's a good point there that the price of EVs has gotten down to not quite parity, but not ridiculous expensive anymore, and people are tightening their belts because of everything. And so maybe there are more people considering it because it's kind of like, you know what, long term, this is going to save me money, and this is going to be a long term,
and
maybe
last
even
forever.
depression. We'll see.
Or maybe it's avoiding having to go to a public gas station right now too.
Oh, well,
like people are like, man, if they're really worried about social isolation and stuff, like the idea of going to a pump that people grab all day is probably, and it's no different if you're supercharging, of course, really. But if you're charging at home, obviously that's a different thing. And maybe that has people looking that way. I don't know.
It's interesting.
But Ben, I'd be really interested if you did like an i3 versus a Bolt, like the cheapest Bolt versus the cheapest i3 you could buy. Because I still think those two cars are pretty cool.
Oh, how could you? The i3.
I love the i3 little stormtrooper helmet. I love it.
Oh God. Well, okay. So a friend of mine, Shelby Church, did a video review on an i3. They rented it, I think, for a week, and she does great work. So if you want to see that, I would recommend checking that out.
I want to see you do
I
it.
would have to swallow a lot of pride to drive an i3, but you got to do it for the views. No, it would be cool to do let's rent every the cheapest 3 or 4 EVs that you can buy and just drive them for a week or two. Although, see, I'm not driving. Like, that's a problem. I'd have to literally just go, So it's kind of hard to test, I guess I would say.
This one sits in my driveway better than that one.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It repels all the rain before it hits the ground. It's fantastic.
But speaking of, not wanting to go out and deal with gas stations and stuff, Tesla does have a new feature that might be helping with one thing that we all hate, and that's looking for parking. So if you guys saw this, this is called reverse summon. So if you're unfamiliar, summon is where with your phone you can tell your car to come to you. Literally, it says "come to me," and now we have smart summon where it will, if it's parked in a parking lot, it will pull out of that spot and come to wherever you're at. Unless your name is Joe Scott, it'll just run straight into a curb.
Still has done nothing but hit curbs for me. But I haven't tested it lately.
So we'll say varying success.
I do have to say, my friend Trevor Mallman, fellow rocket photographer, last time I was down in Florida, he summoned his Model 3, which has hardware 3, from he was still within the radius. He had to be within the radius. But it had to do some pretty nutty stuff around bushes and all these different, and it nailed it. It knocked it out of the park, and it was raining, and I was like, no way. It kind of shocked me, honestly. I didn't expect it to be that good. I think hardware 3 summon is way better than hardware 2.5.
Well, and also the data that they have now, right? Because when all of us were testing that, it was literally the first week or two.
Yeah, it's just very preliminary.
So it hadn't really learned much. It still was a toddler just running into crap, hitting its head on things.
Do they have a video of this or anything, or is that just a picture?
No, not yet. There's a photo here that we're showing. If you guys aren't familiar, you want to check it out. Also, tons of videos on it. Some really funny ones and all that. But it comes from Elon on Twitter saying that they're really working hard on getting traffic lights and stops released. So there was a recent video showing Tesla stopping at a stoplight automatically on street traffic, not on a freeway, and that was really interesting. And so that's what apparently they're working on, but also reverse summon, what they're calling it. Also, you could think of it. See, I don't like the name auto park because to me that just sounds like the auto parallel park thing.
Last, bit,
but the idea is you would, let's say, get to a restaurant, hit a button, and your car would go park itself. It would go find a spot, pull in, do its whole thing, and then when you come back, you could just do the normal what we know now, where you hit a button and it comes to you.
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't have a video of it yet. It's really interesting. I love now. If it only works in a parking lot, that's not as usul for me personally.
Right. Especially where downtown streets and stuff.
I need this to work on public roads. I need, because I think when you guys were here for the 1 year anniversary live show we did, we stayed in Little Italy, or you guys stayed in Little Italy, and that's a great area in San Diego for food, probably the best, most concentrated area of restaurants and stuff. But parking is an absolute nightmare. There just is not parking there. Just don't even try it. So typically you Uber or whatever there. But imagine if I could just drive my own car there, get out at the restaurant, hit a button and it just goes on city streets. Drive around all day. I don't care. Go back to my house.
You didn't even have to find a spot. I can just drive around until you're ready for it.
Exactly. Yeah. Like do whatever. So to me, that will still be the ultimate version of this. But if now it could do it in a parking lot, let's say it's raining, I could see some use cases. I'm still super skeptical and would be very hesitant trying it. But we're getting there, right? These are the baby steps we have to take.
Right.
I've always wondered, what's it going to do to traffic when, say, no one's driving anymore and people are all just constantly summoning cars? Because say everyone summons a car. It means that car, in order to get someone, will have to drive empty to go get somebody every time, as opposed to you parking. So parking would go down because cars won't be parked as often. Right. But wouldn't traffic theoretically go up by almost that same amount? Because now you have cars driving from point A to point B to go pick somebody else up with no one in it, at some point.
I think you could do it kind of how taxis and stuff work at airports, or at least how they work out here. Where there's like a taxi lot with like thousands of taxis just waiting. And then as people come in, there's a guy over there that, calls over and says, hey, come on, I need 10 cars. And people start coming over. I wonder if you could do something like that where essentially you're, like you have pickup and drop off points, but then let's say outside of that, it's just pedestrian traffic only. And so, hey, yeah, it's time to go. Let me hit a button. Cool. It'll be there when you get there. 5 minutes from now, you walk over, you hop in, and it just drove from wherever, from the lot. I don't know. Or they're just constantly driving around, and then you just hit a button, and literally the next one just pulls over to you.
But that's the problem. If it's constantly driving around, now you just have like added vehicles on the road that are just driving around to like not park. Or say it drops the passenger off downtown, unless it literally picks someone else up in that exact same spot, there's going to be a distance that it has to travel to get to the next passenger, where it's congesting the road. It's definitely an added a bit of traffic. But
well, this is kind of like what the data, when you look at ride sharing, it's really interesting. Ride sharing data, or ride sharing, as a service, was like hailed originally or thought to be this thing that would reduce traffic. But what you find is that it hasn't really reduced traffic at all. And in a lot of areas, it's increased it.
I was going to say it should increase it, because you, again, have someone getting dropped off and then an empty, or a car with just a person driving it, going to pick someone else up that wouldn't be on that route normally,
They've gotten smarter about that out here.
But still,
anyways,
if you drove yourself, you'll park and their car will be off the road until you go home, as opposed to like driving to the other person's house to pick them up. It's that little bit that is just completely additive,
Right. But what I'm saying is, at least the experience I've had recently was, I was taking, I forget where I was coming from, but I was taking a lift home, and as I was getting close to my house, it popped up on his app, your next stop is, half a mile away.
Yeah.
So it smartly routed people.
For sure.
Yeah.
It does that,
so
but there's always going to be the drop off point to the next pick off point that is literally just added traffic.
Yeah. Well, the data I saw on ride sharing and why it was increasing was because people that would have, like, essentially, if I was going to the airport, for example, now I'll take a Lyft so I don't have to park my car there. But that doesn't reduce traffic at all, right? And I'm still taking a Lyft by myself. So it's just changing who's driving, essentially. And so I think the data was in New York, and what they were seeing was people in kind of residential suburbs outside of the city taking those in instead of subways because they were nicer and whatever. And so it was like increasing traffic where normally that person would have hopped on a subway or, several subways or whatever you have to do to get there. Now it was just more convenient, and if it's cheap, then who cares? That would be nicer. I would rather obviously sit in the back of my own private car than on a subway with a bunch of other people and other stuff happening. So it was a really interesting thing where it was kind of like killing public transportation. It wasn't like, hey, normally I drive a car, now I'll do this. It was like, no, normally I did that thing sucks, let me do this instead for slightly more money.
What's funny is the only time I take Uber outside of if I'm in a city where I don't have a car or anything is exactly what you said earlier. It's for parking reasons. If I'm going to a part of town that just has no parking and it's just like, I don't even want to deal with it, I'll just take an Uber or to go to the airport or something like that. But it's it's more for parking reasons than for getting around reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
You didn't like sell your cars and be like, I'm out. Like now I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
Right,
You know?
Right. That's funny. And for me, last couple times I think about in California, I used to always just rent a car, and now I'm like, I end up doing about 6 trips maybe, or 10 trips or something. I don't know, not that many times around town. I'll just Uber. Sometimes they're really expensive. Sometimes they're like $50, trying to get from one point of LA to the other at 60. But, a car is going to be that a day plus gas and all that stuff. So it's like, and you can still work. So I find myself doing that when I'm in a city for, 3 or 4 days instead of renting a car and having to mess with that. It's weird. Our habits change.
Like when I'm in Cocoa Beach, I don't even get a car with my whole family.
It's true.
Can you imagine right now? I mean, I don't know personally any Uber drivers, or at least I don't think I do. Maybe there's a few that used to. But anyway, right now with everything that's going on, are they just like disinfecting their cars constantly? Because just random strangers getting in and sitting 2 feet behind them. I'm kind of
Did
amazed.
you see that guy? There was a guy, he like taped up, have you ever had construction done in your house where they like tape a plastic tarp around a room? A guy had done that in his car around him.
That's awesome.
And it was a joke, but I mean, it wasn't a joke, but it was like, we were laughing about it. And then a week later we're like, smart.
Yeah, exactly.
like
He's
all the
gonna be
people making fun
survivor.
of people wearing face masks. I don't know if you remember that, but it was like, like in the very beginning days, people were wearing them, but they're like, oh, that does nothing. Don't be stupid. You look dumb. And then literally a week later, like, oh, I need a mask,
Now it's like I go to the grocery store and I've got a mask in my pocket and it's like, am I going to look stupid or normal? Okay, normal. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So new social norms.
Yep.
Asia has been right this whole time. They've made masks cool forever. Michael Jackson made masks cool. I mean, do you guys remember that? He used to wear a mask.
That's why I carry an umbrella with me everywhere too. No, I had my butler carry an umbrella behind me.
It's my umbrella is permanently mounted in my Rolls Royce's door. Don't you guys know?
I have seen one of those actually in the
insane.
Rolls Royce SUV. It's the only other car that has the automatic closing door when you tap the brake. Or actually, sorry, I think you have to push a button. Yeah.
Silly.
Nonsense. Who has, I mean, come on. What kind of time are we living in if I have to close my own car door? This is nonsense. I can't believe it.
Well, speaking of nonsense, you guys want to hear some nonsense?
Let's hear some nonsense.
All right. So last night, Mr. Musk was very busy on the internet, and we have quite the thread here, and I'm going to miss some of it because you know how Twitter has like multiple threads, and I don't know. Basically, it started off with Eric Berger, who is the space writer for Ars Technica. And he wrote, this article is well reported, but let's be real. Vertical rocket reuse is all of 3 years old. SpaceX is surely saving money on launches. And if the Falcon 9 weren't already insanely cheaper than everyone else, the company could cut prices substantially. This was about a article saying that, so for instance, I believe it's ULA was basically claiming that it would take 10 reflights of a rocket before it would financially pay off. It was kind of the claim, and that's what aviation was latching onto in their article.
Is that like ULA throwing shade on SpaceX? Is that what's happening?
I believe so, a little bit.
Yes.
And Elon said, true. Only reason other than medium and heavy lift launchers are winning any missions at all is due to government intervention. Otherwise, they'd be as defunct as expendable airplane companies. ULA is powered by lobbying.
Shots fired.
Yeah, seriously, some shots fired. So then,
billionaire beef.
So someone G on Twitter says ULA is more reliable than SpaceX. Generally, when you do iterative testing, things fail and are initially unsafe. Both sides have benefits and weaknesses, but saying that the only reason SpaceX doesn't have a monopoly is lobbying is just not true. And then that's sorry, this is like a whole it's just kind of funny. Eric Berger goes, maybe check Block 5's record. So that's referring to, of course, the latest Falcon 9, the Block 5, which the Block 5 variant has 100% reliability. So
what is he saying? So, but the thing we check is not whether it landed, right, but whether it made its payload.
Right, delivered its payload.
Yeah, so Have they ever not done that outside of since the first Falcon 9?
SpaceX has had 2 failures as in the operational Falcon 9. They had a partial failure early on, but that doesn't. It was a whole thing.
Out of what, like 60 or something like that?
82 launches to date, and then but then there's CRS-7 and AMO-6, so they've actually full blown lost 2 payloads. So, but that last one was in 2017, so or 2016. 2016. Yeah, wow. And then Block 5 has been perfectly reliable as far as delivering payloads. So then Elon said it costs less to ensure a Falcon 9 mission. That's the acid test. Michael Sheet says how much less. Elon said, last I checked, over $1 million less. Moreover, Falcon 9 is launching far more often and is the only fully NASA approved and is the only rocket fully NASA approved for launching astronauts. So that gap is increasing. So there's a few things here. First off, apparently NOAA is not less to insure a Falcon 9. According to one of the customers, spoke up on Twitter this morning from what I saw, saying like, no, that's just not true.
Once you have Tesla insurance.
Yeah. Well, SpaceX could maybe start doing insurance on their own. But then Elon's saying that the Falcon 9 is the only fully approved NASA one for fully approved. And I said, what do you mean by only rocket fully NASA approved for launching astronauts? They said, what about the Atlas V N22? Hasn't that passed certification? And don't forget about Soyuz. And Tim, someone else named Tim, says, I'm sure he means American rockets. I go, Atlas V is an American rocket. Well, minus the engines. And by engines, I meant the RD-180, which is its main engine, not engines on the rocket, because the RL-10 is an American rocket. Elon said, yeah, Atlas' main engine is Russian. Great engine, but not U.S. Also, their fairing is Swiss. I think interstage and payload separation systems, also not U.S. Fundamentally, Atlas is still dependent on Russia to launch. So this is just like a shade-throwing thing. Yeah. So at some point,
Who was he fighting with? Was it Bridenstine?
No. He
just random Twitter people?
Mostly picking a fight with ULA.
I'm so mad that he didn't respond to my multiple times. I was trying the Tim Dodd strategy of just reply the same thing to every single tweet he said.
Well, I don't do that.
You don't? I thought that was you gave me the whole
I do a
secret.
Different tweet to almost everything that is something that I can respond to with something reasonable. I tweet a question. I don't tweet the same one.
My thing was, I don't know if you saw it, was that he meant it's the only one with engines named after Falcons.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And then me and then I got the space nerds on me. They were really hot on that one, but they were wrong.
Oh, that's funny. So basically, it's just kept going. But we did learn some fun tidbits. Here's the funnest tidbits of all: is they're now producing serial number 26 for the Raptor engine.
Oh wow!
Isn't that crazy? So last year. Let's see. I think the one that flew last year was serial number, I don't even remember, 4 or 6 or something. It was very low is what flew on Starhopper. And now they're already up to 26. So serial number 8 says Trevor. Thank you if that's correct. That sounds about right. I know that I don't think by Starhopper they were probably getting to number 10. So to have produced 2 more dozen since within a year is pretty great ramping up of an engine production line. 2 a month. That's pretty good. I'm sure they'll get faster than that yet, though. And then Sivakumar Kumar says, what do you think about Rocket Lab's latest retrieval effort? So this is fun because we were just talking about Rocket Lab last week, how they're working on catching a rocket with their helicopter. And Elon said, some of the small launcher activity is cool, especially Rocket Lab. Downsides are helicopter retrieval doesn't scale to bigger rockets and is highly weather dependent. Also, propulsive landing is needed for Moon Mars. That said, it's probably the right move for small low Earth orbit vehicles. And
I mean, that's what do you think about Steve Nash? He's really good at, jump shots. You're like, yeah, that's cool, but you're not going to be able to dunk. You're like, yeah, but he's still making baskets. Like, yeah, but he can't, dunk in your face.
360 round the back dunk.
I know, yeah. He's like, oh, that's kind of cool, but check this out. Oh,
Yeah, that is pretty much what he did right there. This is when I interjected with my own little spice. I just caught up with Rocket Lab's Peter Beck about helicopter retrieving, and it's very exciting. They're making great progress. I hope I can catch up with you again someday about Starship manufacturing. See what
baby.
I did there? He goes, I have great respect for anyone who gets a rocket into orbit. It's very hard. I'm spending crazy hours on Starship design production. It's truly an honor to work with such great engineers. Serial number 4 is almost done. So you'll see, I keep prodding. It's insane how quick serial number 4 is coming together. It makes sense when you build a factory around your rockets and not vice versa, because they're literally building their factory around their rockets. Like, they're not building their rockets inside of a factory yet. They're like building their factory around their rockets. And cool to see mass manufacturing taking an early lead in development versus one-off prototyping. I hope when it's closer to done, I can get a tour from you. Winky face. Hoping to get this. Production is by far the hard part. This is what Elon's saying, sorry. That's why I'm not super worried about the early Starship failure. Initial serial numbers are suboptimal, so would be lawn ornaments if they survived. That said, as lawn ornaments go, they'd be pretty sweet. This is when Bjorn, dang it, I messed it up. Njordog, who is a patron member, said, give Tim a tour. And I go, it'd be so cool to do a tour of Hawthorne versus Boca Chica to see the differences in philosophies between early SpaceX and current. Boca Chica is a giant playground test bed, which is so cool. To that, Elon said, sure.
Elon came in like, yeah, Big Daddy.
It only took me like 8 times of saying, wink, give me a tour.
That's just Elon saying, dude, I got to go to bed.
No, so this will happen. That's how
Elon
the stuff
comes
works.
in like, leave me alone.
So hopefully this means
cool.
I can.
That's cool.
Hopefully it means I can film in old versus new SpaceX factories and get a chance to see like how they actually build their rockets. When the world's not over, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be
I
awesome.
was pretty excited. Yeah, there's that whole rant of. There's way more buried in there. I don't even know how to find them. But basically the big takeaways is that, the one that I wanted to talk about is serial number 4, which is the one currently being built. Here, I'll pull up, as we're talking, Boca Chica Mary and NASA space flights video that they produce. Well, I'll just kind of have this on in the background. But they are currently stacking number 4, which is reusing some of serial number 3 parts. Remember, serial number 3 is the one that kind of collapsed under its own weight when the bottom fell off. Or not fell off, the bottom like depressurized.
Kind of? I don't know what you mean by kind of.
Yeah, kind of just meh. The front fell off. Have you guys ever seen that skit? The front fell off skit? Oh my God, I'm going to send it to you guys later. It's so funny. But so they are able to reuse a decent amount of serial number 3, the whole kind of thrust structure. And they're currently stacking it into serial number 4 as we speak. Serial number 5 parts already being made. Elon did say that serial number 3 will not receive any Aero hardware. Or serial number 4 will not receive any Aero hardware, as they have tweaked it already again. So the flaps are already tweaked from the latest versions we've seen. He said,
is that what you mean by Aero, the top flaps?
Yep, the top flaps and the bottom flaps. All
like
of that
things
would be...
that fly?
Anything that affects the aerodynamic properties of it. And he mentioned the static Aero. So almost meaning, which makes me wonder if there's going to be like strakes on the side, like non-movable wings on the side more, because the flatter, the more surface area there is windward, the more it can stop and the more it can glide too. So if they could switch out some of there's probably some kind of balance there between having non-moving strakes on the side. If you increase those, you could potentially decrease the size of your brakes and therefore decrease the size of your motors. So maybe there's a balance there. They figured out that like, hey, let's just add, a meter of strake on each side of the vehicle, and then their flaps don't need to be as big. But we'll see. That's all total speculation for me. But that means serial number 5, which is currently being built and currently has some parts developed, will be the first one to have the Aero installed, assuming serial number 4 successfully demonstrates its 3 Raptor hop and things like that. So they're staying busy down there. It's just crazy every week. Let me skip ahead to where they're actually stacking. Like it's so nuts how quickly they're doing this stuff. I mean, look Look at that. I mean, this is just what, weeks after.
What's this tower next to it? Is that where they're building it? Oh, because they're building it vertically, not laying it down and then standing it up.
Correct. So they basically just build a ring, stick the ring on top of the other ring, weld it, repeat. And
so are those two different vehicles right there? Like, is that SN5 on the left and SN4 on the right?
You know, I don't think it is. I kind of thought it was, but
You think those are rings
I
for
think
SN4?
both of these so far are number 4. I think the right part will be stacked on top of the left part, or vice versa, I think. But serial number 5 does have its bulkheads and some other parts already done. So, so it's, I mean, it's just nuts that they're getting to the point where they're just putting a rocket together like easily, you know, every other week or so, or basically every month for sure. Should mention real quick, Trevor corrected himself. It was serial number 6 that was used on Starhopper. So we were from serial number 6 to now, what did I say, 26? Like, isn't that crazy? Within a year, it's pretty amazing. Yeah,
that's
so there you go.
Actually, that's interesting because we keep hearing about the serial numbers on the actual rockets that they're building, like we were just talking about, but I hadn't heard anything about the Raptor production until just now.
Right.
So
I think we knew around 20, or I think the community was kind of keeping track, thinking it was around 20 or so. Well, on one of the last ones, when you showed those pictures of Raptors like last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever, there was a serial number 18. We knew they were around 20, but 26 is like, whoa, you guys are making these things.
How many does each vehicle have, both the super heavy and the Starship together? Is it like 31?
So the super heavy will eventually have 37
itself.
Wow.
Itself. And then the upper stage will have eventually have 6 to 7.
Yeah.
I think here's my guess is at first they'll want to do the bare minimum just to get to orbit with virtually no payload. So they'll be able to use, fewer engines on the first stage because they won't fill the first stage probably all the way. Because that will take, if you fill the stage all the way, it will take 37 Raptors to lift it. You know, that's just what it takes. I'm guessing the first one, he's mentioned a few times, they'll only do like 20 some engines on the first super heavy. And then they'll probably fill it enough, to get what they need out of it. And again, same thing at the upper stage, probably just 3 Raptors or something, and fill it enough to get it into orbit and test out what they need to test out. Bare minimum testing as they tend to be doing. So they will have to make a lot of Raptors before they fly an orbital test. Like there will have to be, I will say, at least 30 Raptors that are operational, that are installed on or around 30 Raptors for the first orbital flight.
Kind of makes you wonder if like the Raptor engines are going to be like battery production for EVs. Like that's actually going to be the thing that holds up the production
bottleneck
of the Starships.
I think so. I think that's,
possibly.
It's definitely the hardest thing to manufacture. It's a very complicated system. There's probably almost more parts on each engine than there is the rest of the rocket, moving parts. I mean, they're very, very complicated pieces of machinery.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised at all. Yeah.
Yeah. When you pulled up the picture last week and it was just like a bird's nest of pipes above the engine bell, just like,
and that's the streamlined version. Like they're streamlining it from that. It used to be way more sensors on those things, like sensors on every single pipe had its like multiple sensors. It was just nuts. And now they're starting to get it to the point where they're like, okay, we know that these are the temperatures and the way these things are operating. I should mention that for some reason I've been watching videos a lot about how they build SLS, and having seen Destin from Smarter Everyday's factory tour of ULA, how they build ULA, the Atlas V and Vulcan, and how they cut out the aluminum. There's a lot of manufacturing time and energy on a CNC machine, cutting grid, ISO grids out of the aluminum, making aluminum light enough weight. It's insane to me that the stainless steel, that they're just literally taking rings and it's just good enough just to go without all that additional manufacturing. Like think about how much cheaper and quicker. I mean, we're literally seeing them build a rocket, massive rocket again, pretty much 2 weeks at this point.
I wonder though, how much of it, like by the time we get to one that is like a solid design, right? Where it's like, okay, this thing flew and this is the design. Maybe we'll tweak a couple things, but this is 80% of it. How much more complex is it going to be by then? because it hasn't worked yet, right? So there's definitely a gap of like wherever we're at now to what it's going to be, and we can draw things up. But until the thing flies, I think there's a lot of like unknowns still.
Yeah, and I think some things like again, yeah, like you said, right now they're just trying to demonstrate, just trying to make sure that they can handle the flight characteristics, all the the Raptor engine stuff, all of the avionics, get everything just kind of going and start working on what survives reentry. And then from there, start literally removing parts. Maybe it is some kind of ISO grid with stainless steel. Maybe the more finished versions will have, internal structures and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see, iterative design like always. And I'm sure by the time they're selling one to customers, like it'll be a pretty different looking vehicle.
Lots to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And as they launch more stuff, there's going to be a lot more space debris up there, which I have a story on that. But before we do that, I wanted to ask you guys, did you see the video that I put out earlier this week on my second channel, the TMI channel?
Which one?
No.
I guess not. Wow. I did a video that was giving people tips for working at home.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've been doing it for a while, and now a lot of people are kind of having to adjust to that and everything. So you guys both work from home. At least, Ben, you work from home. Tim, you kind of work everywhere, or once did. Anyway.
One time.
Well, with everybody working from home these days, I thought, there's a lot of people struggling with how to stay productive, keep from going insane and whatnot. And something that I can recommend to anybody who might be in that sort of situation right now would be a productivity masterclass from a guy named Thomas Frank on Skillshare.
This week's sponsor.
Look at how I did that.
Wow, we need a masterclass on how to segue because our show just stepped up big time. Wow.
Oh, I need to hit play on this. See how good I am?
And a masterclass in video production.
Tips about how to use
QuickTime.
Exactly. I need a productivity QuickTime masterclass. All right. So Thomas is a productivity expert, and he's a YouTuber, and like some other people here in this little show. He has a class where he shares some of his best tips on living your best life. That means organizing your digital files, organizing your email inbox, taking notes, task management. He could probably teach you how to grow an epic beard. He's not on screen, so that didn't make any sense. Anyway, I'm so good at this. But this is just one of hundreds of classes you can take on Skillshare, covering everything from business essentials, graphic design, marketing, video production, cooking, basically anything that you are interested in. There's an expert ready to teach it to you on Skillshare.
I've been trying to cook a little
join
more.
the millions of students already learning on Skillshare today with a special offer just for our listeners. Skillshare is offering our Ludicrous Future listeners 2 months of unlimited access to thousands of classes for free. To sign up, you can go to Skillshare.com/OLF. Again, go to Skillshare.com/OLF.
OLF.
One more time for all those with the hummingbird brains, you can go to Skillshare.com/OLF. Your brain and your future. Well, thank you. And we thank Skillshare for supporting this channel.
Sweet.
Yes, we do.
I've been trying to cook lately, so maybe I need to watch one of those.
Well, that would be a good one to promote because everybody's having to kind of do a little bit more of that these days.
I've set off the fire alarm only twice so far, so I'm doing good.
I have been wondering, for people that have never adulted before, this must be extremely difficult, So I was looking around for something to talk about this week, and I found this article. I thought it was pretty cool on New Scientist. This has kind of become my new go-to place for news. I hope that's okay with everybody. But yeah, so there's a company called Centauri. Ooh, sounds very sciencey and Greek. Alpha.
Right. From a guy named Darren McKnight. He's the head there. Anyway, they have an idea to get rid of space junk using talcum powder. And the idea is basically they're going to launch subatomic rockets suborbital rockets, very, very small rockets, but literally like just with talcum powder on board or some kind of fine cloud that they can launch in front of space debris that's kind of in a low Earth orbit. And just that cloud of talcum powder would be enough to slow its momentum to bring it down into Earth is the idea.
Well, that's pretty cool.
So there are 2,000 active satellites with 3,000 dead satellites and thousands of pieces of dangerous smaller debris.
I assume this would only actually work for like low Earth orbit though, because to deorbit from a lot higher up, from geostationary or middle Earth orbits, things like that, you have to slow down a lot. Like it's to get from
because the velocity is higher.
Well, the funny thing is actually they're moving slower, but it takes a lot of delta V to. So if you were to remove something from geostationary orbit and have it deorbit, totally get out and run back into our atmosphere, it's like 1,800, 1,900 meters per second of delta V. And that's like a quarter of the amount of delta V to get to space in the first place. So it's a lot of energy to get back down from geostationary orbit. So this would have to be for for LEO satellites, I would assume. But I've never heard of this. I've never heard of anything like this. It says
that the timing would have to be just exact because the capsule would have to release its particles about 10 seconds in front of the target object at altitudes of hundreds of kilometers. So yeah, that's not very high.
Yeah.
And they're even just using like sounding rockets.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's an interesting
idea. They basically
idea.
just make a cloud of talcum powder, and then the defunct satellite or debris runs into it, and it slows it down. That's crazy.
I mean, I guess it slows it down just enough to lower its orbit and.
Well, it's compounding for sure, like deorbiting, because if you slow down a little bit, you get a little bit thicker into on the opposite side of your orbit, you get into the deeper parts of the atmosphere. So then you slow down more. And then more and more, and it just keeps compounding until whoop, you deorbit pretty quickly. There's a sudden drop off. Yeah. So that makes sense. That's actually really cool.
I mean, I did a video a while back on the space debris problem, and it's not something that's going to get better by itself, at least not over thousands of years.
Right.
So I think it's any kind of ideas like that are interesting.
Yeah.
So it sounds like this is great for when rockets or satellites shut down and we need to take them offline. Reminds me of this new feature Tesla just put out.
I was wondering what the segue is going to
be. Which will now allow you to charge your car with the Powerwall during power outages. So, context,
so wait, you couldn't
if
do
the
this
power is
before?
out in your house, then your Powerwall kicks on and gives your home energy. And generally, it's a very bad idea to charge your electric car from this because the amount of energy in a Powerwall is tiny compared to even a smaller electric car with lower range. But now they have some ways for you to configure that. So if you have a power outage during a pandemic, let's say, you have some options here. And according to Tesla, it says... the Powerwall now coordinates with Tesla vehicles during a power outage to charge your car without exceeding the energy and power capabilities of your Powerwall. The Powerwall reacts to the power needs of your home and will slow or stop your vehicle's charging, keeping your home loads powered. During the power outage, your Tesla vehicle will charge from this Powerwall whenever it is above the threshold set in the Tesla app, and you can change this threshold to balance your home and transportation energy needs. So... kind of interesting. One of the challenges is that when you charge a Tesla, depending on how you're charging it, it will pull more energy than the Powerwall can give. These things have a certain amount of output. I think it's like 60 amps or something like that at a certain voltage. And so whatever, like what it comes down to is almost always when you charge a Tesla, you're going to be wanting more energy than a single Powerwall can give you. Maybe if you have 3 or 4 of them, it'll work. But now there's some options there to balance that. So even if the grid is gone, you will be able to drive.
That's nuts. For some reason, I thought they could always do that though. Like I thought you could just.
You can do it, but so like I have 2 Powerwalls, and so. I think each one can do 30 amps or something like that. So if I have a high power wall charger, it means the car basically will pull more than those can give it. And so it will go to the grid.
Okay.
And there's a whole, the gateway is the kind of the brain that controls where power goes to and from and all that. And anytime I would charge my car, you would see essentially it would go to the power wall, but also be pulling from the grid. And then very quickly the power wall would just be completely gone, depleted. And then it would be 100% grid. I've switched mine to where I only charge from the grid. And I do so during my super off peak time, which is where it's 9 cents a kilowatt hour. Those are some of those like tech Texas energy prices out here in California. What? And so, but then to offset that, I basically live on the Powerwall during the day and on solar. So that way I'm, giving energy back to the grid. So it comes out to be a financial benefit for me. But this was always something like, well, charge during the day was the answer when your solar energy is generating a ton. Otherwise, your Powerwall is just not going to have a chance. So some cool stuff.
Huh. I never thought about like how much energy or power comes out of the Powerwall in terms of it being similar to like a 240 volt or I don't know.
It's more than that. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, so volts and amps are the things that you could have like a high one and a low one and whatever. But in fact, I had an issue not too long ago with mine where certain times of the day we honed in on the AC unit in my house. When it kicks on, it would pull, I think they said like 48 or 49 amps. And that was more than the Powerwall could give it if it was already powering other things in the house. Mm-hmm. And so we'd see like the lights flicker, and we've had times where like the power full on like went out and came back on randomly. So they had to do a thing. They installed it on the AC unit called a Smart Start, where now it pulls like 16 amps when it kicks on versus the 40 something like before. So I mean, I'm really fascinated by this stuff. It's certainly a lot over my head. It's like, it's still like, wait, volts, amps, how does this all connect? But it's really cool in seeing these things. And having a Powerwall or having, two of them like I do in solar, it's such a weird, cool feeling of this like energy independence. Like, I kind of want to do a thing like, can we just go 7 days without using the grid whatsoever? And see, because I actually have a switch in my panel. I can just turn off the grid and just go without it entirely.
That'd be cool.
I hope it's a really big switch that goes conk and it goes really loud.
Yeah, it's like red. There's like you have to put in 2 keys.
Then all the ghosts you've captured now spill out into New York City. Yeah.
One thing I wondered though is, your car, you can actually lower the amount of amperage that it draws. So if you are on a circuit or something that you can't pull more than X amount of amps, you can do that on the screen of your car and say, only pull 15 amps from this.
Yeah, I think the interesting bit here is that the Powerwall and the car will talk to each other to say like, hey, let's say the car is charging and I just flipped on the air conditioning unit. It'll say, oh, your house needs more energy now. I'm going to start charging you less or stop charging entirely to give the house more energy.
That's
so it's
awesome.
Even more smarter.
More smarterness. This is a fun story. My dad, my parents road tripped with me back from Florida. So my dad drove, quite a bit in the Model 3, almost the whole time.
I recall that not being a fun story.
Well, the fact that it took 3 days instead of 2 definitely wasn't a fun story. But my dad was like, man, we need to get you some longer 220, extension cords, basically, something so you can plug into 220 if you're, if that's an option. And my dad has an electrician's license or whatever. I don't know. He's like a electrical engineer and all that stuff. So he took and bought a 1430 plug or whatever the normal one is, and then believe it or not, he put a standard like 110, or he's doing this right now, standard 110 like style, like the normal prongs, on the other end. And then we bought really thick, like 8 gauge or something, really thick normal extension cords, but they're beefy.
They can handle the wattage.
They can handle 220 and like something like, I don't remember what the exact amperage is, but it's something like, 220 at like 30 amps or something. So I'll just have to set the car, to say, don't draw more than this, because otherwise I could overload the wiring.
It should auto detect.
It can auto detect. Well, I haven't tried that yet, but the car knows, I think, what the source is, but I don't know how it could tell what gauge of wire you have in your extensions.
No, so you have, so in between your outlet and your car, you have the mobile charger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is the safety mechanism that should do that for you.
Oh, it regulates it automatically?
Yeah, now if you have an extension cord like past or before that, I guess it might not know, but that's usually the thing, if I'm correct, that limits it. Its whole purpose, it has nothing to do with charging your car. It's just a safety mechanism to make sure that your car doesn't pull more than it can take. And so I've even had times in mine where I go in, I'm like, why is my car charging at 30 instead of 40? And then I swap that thing out with the Model 3 one versus the Model X one, and it changes. So
That's crazy.
In theory, that thing's supposed to protect you, but I don't know if it would help with the upstream wiring.
Right.
It probably wouldn't know anything about that. It would just know that, hey, I can only pull 30 amps. The car, that's all I'm going to give the car.
Right. So we'll see. I might just set it arbitrarily low anyway, but still pull it 220. Even if you pull it 220 and 20 amps, that's like 4 or 5 times faster than a standard 110. So I'll take that.
Oh yeah, 100%, dude.
Yeah,
that totally works.
That's cool.
Speaking of pulling from things, from things. This is a good one. Osiris-REx is starting to practice pulling stuff from an asteroid. Hey.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah. So
this is like the worst Doom game I've ever seen. It's like a first person picking up rocks.
It's like when you get stuck in a corner and you just keep bumping against the wall.
Yeah. Rock simulator, rock pickup simulator. Virtual geologist. So so basically this is Osiris-REx is I believe it's actually Arizona State University is like one of the main people running this vehicle, but are doing a lot of the science with this. But this is a little spacecraft parked around asteroid Bennu. And by parked, I'll say that loosely, because when you're parked around a comet or an asteroid, the gravity's so low, it's almost more like you're really docked to it, because there's so low gravity. You're just and that's the funny thing is it's tricky because you still have to take into consideration its gravitational effects. But like your orbit would be like hilariously slow, because it's just barely hanging on. And so they're practicing a maneuver where they're going to go down and they're going to boop it with this little nose vacuum thing. Basically think like a hummingbird, and it's going to fly down and it's going to touch the surface. It blows, I think, nitrogen or something inert, something. And then it collects the dust from the asteroid into this bin, and then this will actually fly back to Earth and re-enter in this little capsule. And so we'll be able to get a good, clean sample return of this asteroid, which is exciting. I mean, this is Hayabusa has done an asteroid, or we've done comet returns, some dust from a comet return, and I think we've done one other asteroid return before, but this is still, I mean, anytime you go up and start sampling dust and dirt from another planetary body is amazing. Now we should note this video, it's just a little repeating GIF or GIF, however you want to say it, was GIF. A practice burn, and they went down to basically 400 feet, 120 meters above the surface, and then where they started there, and then they went down to 213 feet, about 65 meters above the surface. So it's still really far away. For some reason, the perspective looks really close. Really close. It looks like they basically went up and touched it, but they're still.
So those are actually really big rocks.
They're huge rocks. Yeah, exactly. Because they're still 20 stories up off the ground for this approach. Now the weird thing to me, and I'm sure this is why I'm not a planetary scientist flying a spacecraft. Their next practice won't be until June. So like 2 more months, and then their actual touchdown will be to do the test is like August. And I'm like, what are you gonna do for 2 months? I mean,
calculate.
I'm sure they're calculating and mapping and really, really making sure that the area they're going to touch down is safe, and they're not going to like break off a solar panel on a boulder or something like that, But it just seems like that's a lot of time to just go down and go boop. But then again, you don't want to mess it up though either, You're
what's the lag time on your communication?
Oh, it has to be pre-programmed pretty much, because I'm sure it's minutes. It's measured in minutes, so it has to be a program.
It's longer than that, isn't it? I mean, what is the moon? Isn't the moon minutes?
No, the moon's a second and a half round trip, 3 seconds. Mars is about 20 minutes average, but depends on where it's at in its orbit. And I'm assuming this would be somewhere around there, because I don't actually know exactly where Bennu is. I think it's beyond Mars, but I don't know where it is in relationship to Earth right now.
Isn't that where the asteroid belt is, from between Mars and Jupiter?
Yep. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, this would be exciting. This would be a cool mission. This launched, I think, in like 2016 or 17. I remember this launch. It was on an Atlas V. I was trying to go to it, but I couldn't go down to the launch. But I've been following this mission for quite a while, and I'm really excited for them to get to this next step. And I remember thinking it's going to be so long before they actually do the sample return. And,
we'll have Starlink before then.
Starlink wasn't even a thing.
Yeah. Twinkle
I was
in
just thinking
someone's
they're
eye.
going to be like floating around it, planning their next move, and by that time, somebody else has built a rocket that just goes and grabs it and takes on.
Well, speaking of plucking things out of the ground, do you guys remember this image?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the Giga
from
Berlin. And we were commenting, was it last week or the week before, about how, I love how there's just one lone tree there.
Yeah.
Sadly, it's gone.
Oh, she gone.
As to why that lone tree was taken out, I don't know. Maybe we could have an internet campaign to bring it back. But look at how like ready to put a factory on this lot of trees is.
It's kind of crazy.
Like the Bonneville Salt Flats. I want to race a rocket across there.
Yeah. Did we point out last week that this is not a natural forest, that it was a tree farm? Okay, because that kind of
and I heard that that one lone tree was there were some bats in it or something, and they had to get those out first.
Controlled by the 5G.
Oh God! Don't even start. Don't even start.
Well, speaking of hacks, I don't know. If you guys may have seen yesterday on the Twitters, last night, or 2 days ago, maybe now, we did it.
Yes. Thank you, Ben. I couldn't figure this out. So I sent Ben for those of you looking. Yeah, describe it, Ben.
Yeah, you can. Well, we were able to load some footage on a Tesla cam that you put in your car with the Sentry viewer now and view a rocket launch from multiple angles.
Yeah.
So how did you get those multiple angles?
So I went. If you know where you're looking on NASA's website, eventually you can find a lot of their raw footage of clips of missions. So this was CRS-19, which was just a little bit ago. I don't remember, like at the end of last year sometime, and or something like that. I don't know. But I took the long string of clips that they had and I cut it up and lined them all up into layers, and then I just sent Ben those layers because I couldn't get it to work on the thumb drive to show up as Sentry footage. How did you end up getting that to work? What'd you do with those files that I sent you?
Well, I think I put them in. Okay, so there's like 3 folders when you look at the USB drive that Tesla uses, and it's recent clips, saved clips, and Sentry clips or something. And I just put it into all of them. So.
So you just took those files?
The way I had to do it, in the saved clips and the Sentry clips, it has a folder, and the folder name has to match the file name. So you had already done a lot of that, but I don't know. Did you not put it in those other folders, or?
I didn't try putting it into its own folder with like the same name as that would kind of make sense.
Well, that's how Sentry clips and saved clips are, is that they when you go into those folders, there are other folders of those actual clips.
That makes sense. So I'll just try that because I wanted to play around with that myself. I didn't realize it had to be in a folder. That's what I was missing then the whole time, was just the folder name of it,
Maybe,
Gotcha.
So there you go.
That totally makes sense.
Fun little hack. I love the idea of whether or not you could. It wouldn't make sense to do this for a live launch. Although I wonder. So I wonder how they built this.
4 feeds, yeah.
Because if this is built on like HTML5, then you could just make a web, like they could just broadcast it here, and then their browser on this could have a way to receive the stream. Yeah, it's doable.
It'd be doable. It'd be very high bandwidth though, but
right, you'd have to be on Wi-Fi for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got this update and have a dumb question. Up at the top of the screen, right next to the little camera for Sentry mode thing, there's a little sun-looking thing with. What is that?
Well, we talked about that. I thought last time that Tesla got sued or something for using the HAL from Space Odyssey, and so they had to change it. And Tim, you said it was from something else, right? Oculus or something.
Well, I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's from. I said it last week. It's Portal, from the game Portal.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was wondering that. Is that just how you turn on and off Sentry mode now? Is that what that is?
Yeah. So that's the same button as before. And when it's on, I think there's a red dot right in the middle.
Gotcha.
And if you guys can see me drawing on the screen here.
Yeah, it works.
I can. It's just like a news guy or something.
Yeah.
Just take a button hook pattern over here, and now he sees the opening on the right.
You do that. Oh, look, I just added it. Wait, I don't know what's happening.
It actually looked pretty close for a second.
Yeah.
Oh.
There it is.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so when it's like that. Yeah. So that is just how you turn on and off Sentry mode now. And the camera is how you view it. Is that correct?
Correct. So the camera, so if you scroll over back to, so the camera normally looks, it's, bad resolution over the internet here, but there's the Sentry thing, and then there's the camera one, which is the dash cam. You click on that, and then you have save footage, which is before, when you clicked on it, it would do that automatically, and it would go, I think, gray for a second, then green, and then come back to red. Red means it's recording. Now you have save footage and launch viewer. And so the viewer is what the thing we were just looking at. So. And
I assume when you're driving, that launch viewer is gone, and if you just click it, it automatically saves footage like it used to.
Oh, that probably makes sense. I haven't tested it.
I doubt it would go into a menu like that, you'd think.
Yeah, but you never know. It's Tesla. You can do karaoke while driving, so, The thing, too, that's funny is the Sentry mode, the reason it's off here is that you can program it to be on and off at certain locations. So if it's like in my garage, I don't need it to be draining battery to do this, right? It's kind of useless.
Right.
So then when you're out and about, it'll change. I think it turns red in the center.
Yeah.
So it's fun. Cool stuff. Cool. I mean, I love, and there's like that Tesla theater thing. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
Where it's, no, not the built-in one. Is it Tesla.theater?
Oh, is that where someone basically made an HTML site that allows you to do like all this other stuff?
Fan-made full screen boost.
That's right.
So we got to do this for TeslaTheater.com. Oh, a bettertheater.com. Got shut down.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Here you go. So it's basically because now the web browser and the Model 3 and I believe the S and X, the newer hardware 2, whatever, has the ability to play video and audio and stuff. So you can basically load whatever. So I saw people asking Elon, can we get Disney Plus in there? It's like, it's already there. You just need basically the web player version of it, which is a new thing because it wasn't like that before. Before it was you had to, the web browser couldn't play audio. And so it was kind of useless in this regard.
Oh, so now it actually, because there was a workaround where you'd launch a link from like YouTube or something to get it to work and stay in full screen or something really weird. Like it was like a click on an annotation in a video, go to the site, blah, 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 did all the stuff. So it stayed like full screen and kept audio running because it still thought it was like through YouTube or something. So are you saying now the audio will play like natively?
Yeah.
Really?
Like if you just go to vimeo.com in your browser on your Model 3 or let's say olfpod.com, something like that. You can just hit play on anything and it'll just play audio.
But
it comes through naturally.
Does this work while driving? I assume that the audio won't work while driving, right?
I don't know, man. It's just the web browser.
And that seems to work too well while driving. Did you know you can Google stuff while driving? Just be like, open web browser, Google brain fart, or something.
Well, you can probably hit the voice command now.
Yeah, that's what I mean
with
the voice command.
Well, so what I've done, I've actually used that before while driving. And the thing I was doing was I live near the football stadium in San Diego. And since football's been gone here for a couple of years, there are random events there at times. And the traffic will be nuts around my house. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Because it's not like they have a big sign and it's not a football game. So I'm like, I would bookmark what the events calendar for the stadium. And so as I'm driving, I'd be like, oh, crap. And I'd just click on it and it would just pop up a list of the events.
Man, why don't they just have
but this time,
why don't they just have a thing that tells you what the events are? Why don't
they just?
Why don't they just do this? Why don't they just do that?
That was a good segue.
Thank you.
Look at you.
Hey, I mean,
look at us.
Master
look
class on segues.
Well, we do have one from Discord.
Ooh.
Can you see it? It says, why don't they just use lithium batteries in electric wheelchairs? Almost all of them use gel sail and never Gel cell? What's that?
Yeah.
Never lithium. I do not know the answer to this. I do know, I can say this. When I did my video on cobalt, I did an interview with, oh God, what is his name? I can't believe I can't think of his name right now. I remember his last name was Kohler. Mark Kohler. Mark from Lithium Works down in Austin. So they make a lithium sulfur.
Right.
Phosphate. Lithium ion phosphate. That's what I'm trying to think of. That has no cobalt in it. He was saying that they use those in like the Segways. And they use them in hospitals on the little stands that they carry around that has the computers on them and stuff. Like the batteries on those are lithium ion phosphate. But I don't know anything about gel cells or why they are not used in electric wheelchairs unless they just have too much power. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'll go because I know nothing about this. I'm guessing it has something to do with a supply chain for a fairly lower, not a huge, an industry that's not like massively competitive, and they just haven't seen the need to upgrade to lithium ion or haven't really had a disruptor come into the industry that's like everyone's going to want this version of this wheelchair, that lasts twice as long or something, yet. But I think it might be ripe for that, maybe, or maybe it's a safety thing with people sitting on batteries all day too. I don't know. Maybe it's safer than, I don't know. I guess we do that in our cars though.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting one. I'm actually reading on the FAA website right now that there are some that do. So there are wheelchair and mobility devices that have lithium-ion batteries, but the lithium-ion battery must be removable so that when you're flying, it can be put somewhere else or something like that. Lithium metal, non-rechargeable lithium batteries are forbidden with these devices. Lithium-ion batteries must be removed from this type of a mobility device, and battery terminals protected from short circuits. The lithium-ion batteries must be carried in carry-on baggage only. So
you'd have to break it down into.
The question is, why aren't they more prevalent?
Well, think about what that means. You have a limit on, 10,000 milliamp hours or something, or whatever size. I don't remember the exact number. Whatever size of battery, you can't have bigger than that for your carry-on. And it's decent size. Think of a big laptop battery, basically, right? Think about how many of those laptop batteries you'd have to have in a wheelchair and remove all of them separately from the device in order to have them be legally considered a carry-on if their requirement is to remove them from the wheelchair. You'd have to have like 10 or 20 probably sit there and take them all in a bag every time you get on and off the plane. Yeah. That's probably the right answers. Maybe
so it appears that some of them do. Good question. Yeah, I wonder if it's more.
Yeah, that was from Sean. So thanks for that, Sean.
I'm surprised they don't have like a version that's like travel and a version that's not travel or something, Because your daily use, I bet, would be great with lithium ion,
Yeah, and so I wonder. Okay, so I'm actually just got a response back from my friend Zach, whose wife is in a wheelchair, and asked him, do wheelchairs use lithium-ion batteries? And he said, which kind? And I said, any kind. And he said, there's a billion. So I don't know. Maybe
Sean in Discord says he just wants to go 1,000 miles, 1,600 kilometers. I'll add that in his wheelchair. That would be crazy.
Then you could ride 500 miles and then ride 500 more.
Not good. Oh, that's bad. That's bad.
Sorry.
Oh, copyright strikes.
You could also go plaid or ludicrous, possibly. Lithium ion.
Yeah, I mean seriously, I am wondering. You'd think there's a lot of those little industries though that aren't terribly competitive. Probably they just haven't had the need to be. Where I wonder if they'll just be a big disruptor someday. It's like a wheelchair. It's like, hey, we're half the price. And we're twice as good, Well, and I wonder if weight is an issue too. Like, there's probably this. Yeah. So when you look at, I guess these are like physics problems and engineering efforts, right? You don't just want to, to a hammer, everything looks like a nail kind of thing where yeah, these make electric cars go awesome. Let's just use them in everything. There are probably a lot of times where yeah, you don't really need that and it's more expensive and there's other trade-offs. Like, why do that? Yeah. So there's probably some reasons here that we don't know.
Yeah, I didn't know what the gel cells were cost-wise. It might be make more sense in that regard.
Yeah, and weight, it could be like you don't need to go 500 miles,
Right.
and it's far cheaper as a result. So
Yeah, it could be weight, cost,
Sorry.
and safety.
Guess we don't have a good answer, but
Yeah, that was a good
Well,
question.
there is another one.
Ooh.
Let's go crazy. Let's do 2 of them.
Double header, baby.
My gosh.
do we? I need the music again. Come on.
Why don't you do the music for this one, Ben? You had...
Yeah, do it.
Why don't they just?
That's so much better than
want
my
that so
stupid
bad.
thing. Let's just do that
jealous.
each week. That's so much better.
That's just what we're gonna do from now on.
Yep.
All right, so Gonzinator 1982 this morning actually kind of retweeted something he shared back in January because he's like, dude, come on. Says, why don't they just put a few Tesla megapacks on a train carriage to power electric trains where the lines aren't electrified? Carriage can be swapped out for charged up ones at major hubs. 12 milliwatt hours megawatt hours should be enough. Sorry, should be enough for 100 kilometers. I think it's kind of a cool idea.
Well, I think... I mean, I don't know why we don't have way more just swappable batteries for electric vehicles in general. I know we've talked about the cons of it, and some of those things, but yeah, I mean, for electric trains, the only problem is it's not that common to have electric trains for like major distances, is it? I mean,
Usually they're powered by something above. Like we have a trolley here in San Diego, and they're electric, but they're powered by power lines, and they have a little like thing that goes up there.
Either above, or they have like a third rail in the.
Well, now I think about it, I watch sometimes when I'm like scripting or something in the background, I'll turn on train videos and just let it go where it's driving through the Alps and stuff. And even some of those, I guess, now that I think about it, do have a live wire above it, even going like cross country.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's probably the idea of like, they don't have a track, I'm guessing. If it's, if it's not electric now, then there's no routes there for that electric train. So therefore, there's not a problem with there being an outage of electricity. I don't know. I have no idea.
No, that's a good question though, because if you, hey, could you just say use your existing infrastructure but make it electric? Could you just drop that on there? I think that's not a bad idea. I wonder about the durability of those things sitting on a train track and bouncing around for hours and heat and all that. Like there's more than just, drop some batteries on it and you're good. But how cool would that be if it could go and then it just, let's say it pulls into a station, undocks that one car and then switches up to another one that's charged, and then that thing goes off and then charges, and then you keep going. I think there's some merit to that. I wonder if, it all comes down to the economics of it, right? We're looking at costs here, because if it's cheaper to not do that, then people won't do it. It doesn't matter how much they say they love the environment when it comes down to, not in this country anyways, unless they're being forced to do it through regulation. So if you can make it cheaper, and then, I guess the other argument would be like the platooning autonomous Tesla semi-trucks, would those be cheaper and better and faster? Because rail, the problem with rail is it's cheap, but it's super slow.
Not always super slow, but it's also limited in its final destination to a train station and where the rail goes.
Yeah.
Like you can't take it to some factories or some stuff.
The last mile problem.
Yeah, exactly.
But still, you could just right. For long distance transportation to switch it over, it would have to be a cost savings. Otherwise, they just wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
there would just be no.
I'm just wondering if there's even much of a use case where there's like, here's a part where we don't have electric rail that we wanted electric rail and we need to cross over using a battery pack. Like, I just wonder if that's what the diesel engines are for, like a diesel train. I don't know. I mean, I know that's not the sexiest answer, but I'm just guessing it's like they just don't use the electric ones on those routes. I don't know. Yeah.
I also wonder about like just the power required to haul that much weight. I mean, when you look at some of the stuff that I've seen where people have Teslas and they're just pulling stuff, just a little bit of towing like knocks so much off of the range on it. And those freight trains
I did a whole video on it.
So freaking heavy. Yeah.
And nobody watched it, by the way. So if you guys are wondering,
He's not angry.
Well, it was funny because I feel real bad because it was a Trade Coffee. It was a sponsored video, and those guys are awesome, and I actually really love their stuff. And I felt so bad because the video did so poorly. It was literally the day that they declared a national emergency for coronavirus here in the U.S. It was like my video comes out, 10 minutes later, Trump announces it. It's like poof, just all the views just drop flatline. And I was like, oh man.
And then the
This
algorithm.
isn't even appropriate right now.
Yeah, then the algorithm's like, yeah, no, this video sucks. Like, we're never gonna show this again. Clearly, no one cares.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. As is the internet. Speaking of the internet, what are you guys working on for videos?
What am I working on? I actually managed to get a little bit ahead.
What?
Monday's
Look at
video
you.
for me is on ball lightning.
Oh yeah, that is a weird thing.
Something. So when I was growing up, I had all these books like Mysteries of the Unknown and stuff like that. And there were all these stories of ball lightning that would fly through people's chimneys and buzz around their houses and stuff, and just sounded crazy. And it was always like in the same realm as ghosts and fairies and whatnot. It actually is a real thing. And it was actually caught on camera by some Chinese researchers that were doing spectrographic analysis of a lightning storm. And they actually caught some ball lightning, was able to do some spectrographic analysis of it.
Wow.
So
we actually
they
have
were
some
able
like
to tell
proper data.
what elements were inside of it.
There's actually like some proper observations and not just like hearsay and storytelling.
Well, there's still a lot of hearsay just trying to figure out what it is and
Yeah.
how it works. But no, it actually has a little bit of evidence to it. So. Yeah,
Cool.
So I talk about that, but I also do a lot about lightning in general and how it works and stuff. So
Sweet. That's awesome.
Interessante.
What about you,
Tim,
Ben?
did you put out a new video last week? Did I see it?
Well, I put out
Everybody
an
asking about
interview with I put out an interview with Peter Beck from Rocket Lab, and I put that out I put it out right before I went on to. I did a thing for Yuri's night where we were talking.
Right, saw that.
Yeah, so I wasn't really able to really do too much of that video, but it was fun. I mean, I love catching up with Peter Beck. He's, they're working on catching their rockets from space. But I did finish shooting my SLS versus Starship video, and
Dun dun dun.
and if a good thing I didn't do a 100 push-up bet on this one because I told you it was going to be 30 minutes. I was like, no, this is going to be a quick one.
quick.
Nope.
It's an hour and
Yeah.
17. It's a full
hour
blown
what?
15.
hour and 17. It's a full blown documentary.
How could you do that?
I don't know. I hate myself for it. So I'm in the middle of editing that, which will take me a while, but I'm glad to see my new computer is eating up After Effects, though. That's pretty nice.
Ooh.
Yeah. So what
You
about
just
you,
need
Ben?
to call me whenever you're think the video's getting too long, and I'll be like,
Tim, stop now.
Why does Ben? You're banned.
Sunday.
No, I know. This was just one of those topics, honestly, that I wanted to settle the debate because there is just constant Twitter debates about SLS versus Starship, and it's just like people are just spewing stuff that's not true, and there's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of
on the internet?
on the
Huh?
internet, and just a lot of false assumptions, and so it's basically a giant reality check for me too. Like I had my I did one of those, so yeah, I think it'll be a good one though.
I've had a similar experience on next week's video, which is about we talked about it on the show a couple weeks ago about positive outcomes potentially from COVID.
Right.
So I've got an actual video I did on it, and because we have data and it's from legit sources, and so because when you see the dolphins swimming in the canals in Venice, you're like, I don't know if I trust what it's not like a space agency. Hey, baby, is that Zoe?
It's Zoe.
Hey, Zoe.
Sorry, you're in the middle of talking. I dog blocked you.
You dog blocked me.
But okay, so you're gonna be talking about that
So the environmental effects, any positive ones potentially that are an outcome of the pandemic going on right now, because we have some interesting data and there have been some economists that looked into it, and so we kind of share that and look at it. Really, I just want to give people something potentially positive to think of and look at instead of just all the negative. Because I feel like that's all we're bombarded with, except for John Krasinski. So. You know, it's like a good. Hopefully, it doesn't come off as like I'm out of touch. Like how dare you talk about good stuff? We need to be living in the negative. Hopefully that's not what it comes across. But I guess again, I really don't care what people think. So, whatever.
You think they don't already think that about you?
I know. Yeah, like I'm okay being hated. It's fine as long as I'm still being something.
You're like, my haters, my motivators.
Hate us because the anus. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds just like you said.
Emphasis on anus.
Yeah, I was gonna say you just straight up said ANUS. Hate us because the anus.
Hate us because we are a planet that spins on our side. Fine.
Oh,
humor.
Well, kids.
Yeah, I have dogs that are needing attention, so I guess I need to.
That's it, guys.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll see you.
Thanks for
all
listening.
In our
ludicrous future.
I can't compete with that. Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you like what we do and you want to kind of help get it out there, you can give us a nice review on any of your podcast streaming platforms, whichever one you use. That kind of helps get it out there. Also, we do have a Patreon set up, so you can join us there at patreon.com/ourludicrousfuture. You can get your name in the credits, meet a whole other group of like-minded people. It's a lot of fun. We do appreciate it. We'll see you there.